Ever wanted to start something but for some reason you didn't feel ready? Well, I've been there. But here are 5 reasons why you should start before you're ready. You're probably gonna suck the first time you do something new. So it's better to embrace it even before you get in there, because you cannot compare your day one with someone's day 200. So however much you prepare, however much you plan, you cannot get a clear map to success in whatever field you're trying to adventure in. So just embrace the fact that the first time you're going to do something, you're probably going to be terrible at it. Better get started even though you're not ready, because it's gonna suck anyway. 2. You don't know what you don't know. This might sound confusing, but until you actually do something practically and experience it, there are some things you won't know that you don't know. For instance, there's a time we started bidding for government contracts, and every time we applied or every time we put in our bid, it did go through for some reason, and yet we fully qualified for those kinds of jobs. So at one time we consulted, we're like, how come we fully qualify for this job but we never get the bid? And this gentleman was generous enough to give us all the answers we needed. He was like, you see, us as government bodies, we usually like working with companies that are VAT registered. So I was like, oh, okay. So even though we do qualify for the job, the fact that we're not VAT registered, we cannot go through. He's like, yes. I'm like, why? And he's like, because us as government bodies, we try to retain some of the money we give service providers through VAT. So if the company is VAT registered, when we pay them for a service, we are assured that we will get the 18% VAT back to the government, which can be used to fund other things. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. So quickly, I googled, of course, the requirements for VAT registration, and other factors being left constant, I discovered that companies only qualify to be VAT registered if they make 150 million and above annually. So this information, we wouldn't probably have known that we didn't know it if at all we weren't actively applying for these bids. So there's some things you actually won't know until you're practically doing something, you're practically experiencing it. So start, even though you don't feel ready. Perfectionism. Perfectionism breeds procrastination. I'm not saying doing research and preparing is bad, but overdoing it is bad, because however much you prepare, you really want to get a clear map of how to get to success. So it's better to get the information that you need and move with that. So punch perfection in the face and start doing, even though you don't feel ready. For instance, my first video, I don't know the number of times I shot that video, and I was not content. I was not content. Every time I shot, I felt like maybe some parts I spoke too much, some parts I spoke too slow, some parts I wasn't audible enough. And when it came to editing, oh my god. Every time I watched the video, I wanted to edit it. Every time I watched, I wanted to change something. And if you go back to my very first videos, they had a lot of cuts that are so evident. And being that I was also new in the video editing thing, oh my god, it was something else. But I embraced it. That is my journey. So it reached a time and I had to punch perfection in the face and upload the video anyway. Even though I didn't feel it was good enough, even though I didn't feel it was, worthy of being out there, but I just had to do it. Otherwise, up until now, I wouldn't have put out a video. So, punch perfection in the face and start anyway, even though you really don't feel you're ready. 4. Ignore the small voice. Most of us have that small voice. Some people call it the lizard brain. Excuse me. That keeps whispering in your head, keeps whispering to you, telling you how you're not prepared enough, how you're not ready, how you're not qualified for certain things, how you're doing it wrong, how, that self-doubt. Most of us do have that, and we battle with it. And sometimes you're actually ready to do something, but because of that voice, because of that lingering voice that keeps whispering to you, you feel you're not ready. And the only way to silence that voice or to reduce its volume is by acting. It's by doing that exactly that you're afraid to do. And then I was watching Mona Faces, the makeup artist. I was watching her interview with Crystal Newman, and she said before she opened her studio, she found the location that she wanted, she found the rental place, the rental space that she wanted, and she paid for it. After paying for it, she started working on it, customizing it, branding, and all that to make it a legit, makeup studio. So after doing that, she still didn't feel ready. So it was covered up with newspapers so that the people outside don't see what's going on in it. So at one point, she went to the studio to pick something with a friend of hers. So getting there, when the friend entered the studio, he saw the studio was ready. Like, he didn't know why she hadn't started. So he went ahead and asked her, the place is ready, it's set up well. How come you haven't opened yet? How come you haven't started? And she was like, I'm not yet ready. I still have a few things pending. I still want to work on this and that, You know how we can come up with excuses. So this friend, from the response he got, he knew there was self-doubt somewhere. So he went ahead and ripped off all the newspapers from the walls without her permission. She was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "I'm helping you launch." He went ahead and just ripped off all the newspapers. And so the studio was out there. Everyone was seeing what was happening in there. And she didn't feel okay with that. And from her words, she said at first she was even mad at him. She was like really, really mad at him for doing that. But that forced her to launch the studio, open it up. And now she's, one of the biggest makeup artists that we know in the nation. She's one of the people who started makeup studios in the nation. And she was hesitant. Why? Because the small voice in her head told her she was not ready, yet she was ready. So silence the small voice whispering in your head or the lizard brain by actually doing. Go start that project, go start that business, even though you don't feel ready. Lastly, mistakes are magic. There's this quote that I like. I usually apply it in every area of my life when things are not going well, or when I face a challenge, when I'm doing something. I usually run to that quote. It says, "I never lose. I either win or learn something." Well, that's why mistakes are magic. Because when you make a mistake, you're gonna learn something, and next time you won't make the same mistake. You become wiser. Every time you fail at something, you become wiser. And besides, when you start something and along the way you realize that you're not as interested in it as you thought you were, it is okay to stop it and branch off in another direction. It doesn't mean that when you start something, it has to go through till the end, even when you don't feel right about it. No, that is how we discover our purpose, through trying different things until you find the thing that comes natural to you, and then you stick to it. So all these other things you try out keep teaching you that no, that is not the direction you're not supposed to take. That is not the way you're supposed to go. So embrace the magic in mistakes. Well, I hope this video has been helpful to one or two people who have been holding back. Otherwise, thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please click the red button below and click the notification bell so you're the first to know when I upload new content. If you like the content in this video, drop me a like and feel free to share this video with friends and family. Until next time.